Genesis holds an important place in the Bible as one of its two bookends, which frame the whole story. The other bookend is, of course, the book of Revelation at the end. And there are some remarkable parallels between the beginning and the end. This really points to the reality that the Bible is a unified whole. It's one story from beginning to end, with ultimately one author, God himself. At the beginning of Genesis, we see only the existence of God. He is the eternal one, who is above and beyond any conception of time. Genesis begins, in the beginning, God. Before anything existed, God was already there. He alone establishes the beginning and the end. In the book of Revelation, God repeatedly refers to himself as the first and the last, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega, which are the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet. He started human history, and he will bring it to its conclusion, the Alpha and the Omega. Genesis begins, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So the first heaven and the first earth were created in Genesis 1. In Revelation 21, we see the creation of the new heavens and the new earth. So Genesis is about creation, Revelation is about the new creation. In Genesis 1:2, we see that the earth was formless and void, and darkness covers the surface of the deep. In the ancient world, the waters or oceans symbolize the forces of chaos. God's creation in Genesis brings order out of chaos. It brings life and light to darkness. In Revelation 21:1, we learn that in the new earth there is no sea. Now, I live in San Diego. I know some surfers who are pretty upset about that. There won't be an ocean in heaven. I'm sure there'll be some kind of surfing, maybe cloud surfing or something. But the point in Revelation is that in the new creation, there will be no more danger, no more death, no more chaos. God will bring meaning and order to all things. In Genesis 1, God creates lights, the sun and the moon, to rule the day and the night. In Revelation 21, we see that in the new creation, there is no need for a sun or a moon, because God himself is the light. Again, what is introduced in Genesis finds its fulfillment or completion in Revelation. In Genesis 1 and 2, we see the creation of Adam and Eve and their spiritual marriage as the two become one flesh. There's a marriage at the end of the book of Revelation as well. It's the wedding of the Lamb, the marriage of Christ and his church. In Genesis chapter 3, we see the serpent, later identified as Satan, first introduced. He tempts the first humans and so introduces sin and death into the world. At the end of Revelation, we see not only the end of sin and death, but the end of Satan as he is cast forever into the lake of fire. In Genesis 3, we see death entering the world. God warns Adam and Eve that on the day they eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they will die. And sure enough, they die spiritually on that day, and ultimately they'll die physically. So while in Genesis, death enters the world, in Revelation, death is destroyed forever. In Revelation 20:14, death and Hades are thrown forever into the lake of fire. Then in Revelation 21:4, with the creation of the new heaven and the new earth, we learn that he will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. After Adam and Eve are banished from the garden, the tree of life is forbidden to them. But in the New Jerusalem in Revelation, the tree of life will be back. Revelation 22:2 says, on each side of the river stood the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month. All of this should make clear that Genesis is the beginning of the story that will reach its completion in Revelation. And the whole Bible is a grand drama, the story of God's redemption of humanity and of all of creation.